So welcome to Sunday Night Live. Since I have a guest tonight, Cheryl's taking a break. She's been busy working and getting some things done. We're going to be on the road again starting on Tuesday morning. We're going to go over and tour some of the beach area around the Florida Panhandle, spend some time over there. So we will be on the road, and she's kind of getting ready to go. For everybody, the first thing that I need for you to do is when you're watching, let us know where you're watching from. I'm home, which is nice. And we'll ask our guest when I bring her in just a minute where she's from. Also, if you have questions for our guest or comments, please don't hesitate to put them in the comments. If you put them in the comments, if you're watching on the replay, that's fine. I'll try to keep my eye on them. And if I can't find the answer, I'll reach out to our guest, who is Karen Thomas. So we can try to make sure you get answers. Let's bring our guest in. Karen Thomas is our guest. And so, Karen, you want to give us a little bit of background about yourself?
Hi, Ken. Yeah, happy to. Thanks for having me. I love your subject because you're so correct that worldwide it can be hard for people with various types of disabilities, whether it's physical or emotional, mental. People don't know, the general public doesn't know what's going on with anybody else, right? And so there are also very much limitations. And my specialty is autism. And so what I do is I help parents of children with autism to basically recover their children. And when people hear that term, they say, well, you can recover a child. Well, when my son was diagnosed 18 years ago, I was told to drug him and try behavioral therapies, and good luck, that there was really nothing that we could do for him. But fortunately, I have a over 30-year now background in craniosacral therapy. So I had studied the brain extensively even before my son was diagnosed, and had a lot of holistic background with, natural health resources and things you can do to help the body, and nutrition, of course. And so I thought, I don't want to drug him. I want to find out what's causing his, debilitating anxiety and inability to focus and learn in a classroom when we know he's brilliant, and the irritability and inability to stay calm and control his emotions, all these things. I thought, there's got to be something else going on here. So, and I wasn't getting the help from any practitioners or anybody I saw over and over, and I was spending so much time and money. So I decided I was just going to do the research for myself. And it took me a good decade of trial and error of different supplements and removing various foods and trying things and just learning and learning. And it took me a lot longer than it is for the parents that I now help with my program, because I didn't have a plan or a roadmap. I had to figure it all out along the way. But today, my son no longer has any symptoms of autism. And all of those things that he once had are gone. He's calm, healthy, happy. He lives independently on his own. He's a college graduate with almost straight A's all the way through college, and so he basically got his life back, himself back. And we're not trying to change anybody. We're trying to help them live to their full potential. And so the word recovery means to regain health. And there are underlying root causes that will literally cause the physical and emotional behaviors that make life really uncomfortable for children with autism. And so I always say everybody's level of recovery is different. And if your child still has a diagnosis, that's fine. The goal is to help to do all of the things that we can do to get anybody to their optimum level, to the best that they can be. And so I have a 4-stage process, and I'm actually giving an event this week that you can find on my website. It's free, teaching these 4 stages and what has to be done. And so, things were really challenging for us, the whole family, and my son back then. And when you see, traveling, like a lot of things now, especially in the early 2000s when he was diagnosed, there wasn't as much awareness of autism as there is now. But there's still a lot of people that are not familiar with it. And so they see a child behaving or acting out, and they literally start judging the parent. I mean, parents I work with today are still saying, all you get in public are judging. And I'm like, you have to just learn to ignore people. But it is helpful, the more awareness that comes from it. And being able to, I know that like on an airplane, you can even sometimes, I know you get priority boarding on airplanes, At Disneyland, they will let you have to check in with their office when you first get there. You can go to the front of the line because they know that children with autism don't have the patience or the ability really to wait in a line. So these are good things to know ahead of time. And there are various foods that I can go over that are helpful when you're traveling, to be more helpful to feed them versus things that can make your child behave worse, because diet and foods definitely do matter. And then you can, somehow, I know that some people have like a lanyard that a child will wear maybe around their neck, especially if they're nonverbal, that says, I have autism. And so then other people are more understanding to the child and the family and things like that, because there there are so many limitations and so many people who just don't know what's going on, and you just want to make the experience friendlier for the entire family when you're traveling, because there's a lot of anxiety that you get when you're headed out for a trip. Even if you're headed out the front door, and you're going to go to the grocery store, that can be, and just, you can have such an episode anywhere you go, and you never know exactly what's going to trigger your child and when. And there are some tips that I can give to help calm things as well. But I just wanted to mention all of those right up front.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I had the chance to talk to most of the ADA compliance officers for the cruise lines, and they seem to do a really good job of. Some of them use a lanyard, and it's interesting because they use it for children or individuals with autism, but they also use it for individuals that have dementia and other reasons where they might behave different than you would expect. And in that lanyard that alerts the crew that this is not something we need security for. This is something that we need to deal with in a calm and quiet way, and and just try to help this person not think that they're deliberately being bad or something.
Right.
And it's interesting too that some of the all-inclusive, Sandals is one that I know, or actually not Sandals, but Beaches is one I know that they have their counselors in their daycare programs, or I don't call them daycare, but like kids clubs and stuff.
Mhm.
Their counselors are trained and certified for. There's an organization that certifies it. Something City. The name has gone away. It'll probably pop back up here in a minute, and I'll blurt it out, and you'll be, why do you yell that in the middle of what I was saying?
But what do they get certified in? And how to work with people with
individuals with autism.
No, that is really good to know. Yeah, I'll inform my parents.
Yeah. Anyway, like I said, cruising is probably the place you get the most support, because pretty much they have on board, their kids it's something City. Hold on. I'll have to find it. I'll try to talk while I do that. But on board the ships, they're trained with, Culture City. That's the name of it. It finally popped in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the autism organizations that, hello, let me say hi to a few people. Okay, so let me say hi to Rhonda. She didn't get off in Cabo, but I said hi anyway. Let's see that. Okay. Oh, Rhonda, that's interesting, because in Cabo, when we were there, they had a roll-off tender, so you could just roll off in your chair, and so it was pretty nice. But we were on. Let's see, who were we on? We were on Carnival there, and it all depends on the cruise line. Okay, and then other Rhonda. Hi, Rhonda. How are you doing? That's okay. It's good to see you as always. We're talking about autism, but there's an organization too, and I don't know if your parents know this, but it's called Autism at Sea. It's an organization, nonprofit, and one of the things that they do is they will go and travel. They kind of have like group trips where they travel with people that have children with autism, and they have a bunch of volunteers that go, and and everybody's trained, and the goal of it is that they'll do respite care while they're on the ship, so the parents and any children that are not are neurotypical, if they need a break to get away and go do something, they'll help with the children. Also, if the family wants to go swimming, they kind of form a perimeter around the pool, so that in case somebody wants to elope, that they can
Mhm.
you know, capture them before they go somewhere and get hurt.
Mhm.
So those kinds of things. And capture is probably a bad word, but they can find them and help them back to their family. That's a better way to say it.
Mhm.
But
Oh, that's great.
they're all really focused on trying to help. Like I said, I'm a big fan of cruises because they have plans in place for pretty much anything you can think of. We've talked about lanyards for people with dementia. Because we had at one time 3 people with dementia living in our house, and it was a challenge at times. So, being able to go, it makes it nice.
Well, and it can be dangerous, if like you mentioned, eloping, if a child with autism elopes out the front or runs off, or on a cruise ship they run off, and people don't. At least they're on a ship, maybe, and that way they hopefully don't are safe enough to stay, not go over the edge. That's just terrifying to think of, but that there are ways to keep people safe. I mean, with dementia, you really want to have somebody, dementia and Alzheimer's, people really want to be wearing some type of a safety security bracelet, with their name and their address and a phone number of contact for a family member, somebody, because this actually happened to my mom's friend. She wandered out her front door at 3 a.m. and, and in her mid 80s. And luckily a nice man saw her on a bench. She had fallen down and had almost broken her arm. And she was, and it's the middle of the night, and he's thinking, luckily it was a good man, and he was looking at her thinking something's wrong. And she had a bracelet on. He called the paramedics, they came, but because she had identification on her, they were able to get a hold of family members. So those things are very important.
Yeah, I relate a lot to that. One day in the middle of a snowstorm at about 1 o'clock in the morning, my mother-in-law talked my father-in-law to go into going to Golden Corral.
To where?
Golden Corral, the buffet.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay.
At 1 a.m. And they made it about a block and a half, and then he walked back to the house, and then we had to get paramedics to get her up and out of the car, okay, and had to get the car towed and all of those things. Pretty much after that, I parked across the driveway so he couldn't go anywhere because it just, you just didn't know. A couple times, he would be driving somewhere and they'd get lost, and so they would find. One time we had the policeman. We were traveling somewhere. A policeman called us because he was able to find our number, and then we had to call somebody that was back home, have them go over to the next city to get them, and and get them, help them get home. So it's it is important that you think about that, because and that's why I love traveling in ways that makes it at least reasonably safe and reasonable where people understand. Because like I said, they can behave in ways that would have the security tackling them and handcuffing them and putting them in the brig till they find out that there's that he wasn't drunk, he wasn't being bad, it was just
right.
Yeah.
Well, they're trying to educate police officers, throughout the U.S. in various communities to help them understand some of the signs to maybe look for if they see somebody acting out. Because now, especially, as the age is increasing in many of the people with autism, when they're teenagers or young adults or adults, period, then if they have an episode, people automatically get frightened and think, they're dangerous, or, and it's they just need to kind of know the signs to look for. At least not the worst thing you can do is try to hold down a person with autism and bind them, because then it just makes them worse because they're terrified.
Yeah.
But then it just seems like they're resisting arrest or something, and then it's a matter of really people getting educated in some of these signs, and maybe looking at, okay, is there something else possibly going on with this person, versus just automatically thinking, oh, they're just some dangerous maniac or something like that. Okay, this person might have some issues, and is there a possibility that we could work with them and keep them and everybody around them safe too? I understand that aspect, but it's just kind of maybe just a little bit more awareness.
Let's go back up, and in the early days before you had found ways to help your son and you were traveling, what are some of the things that you ran into that were challenges, and how did you deal with them?
Well, he could get really nauseous on car rides, and sometimes he could get where he wouldn't want to be in the car all of a sudden, and he'd start throwing himself around inside, and it was dangerous. What I learned too was, after I basically healed his biology, the toxic invasion and the inflammation on the brain and the co-infections and the things in his body that were creating these behaviors. Actually, once we cleared his system, then all of this was able to go away. But at the time too, this is something I think that's really important for parents to understand, is what you feed your child makes a tremendous difference. I have a free food guide. We can link to it in the show notes. It's easy. It's autismcheatsheet.com. But if you start eliminating these top 7 foods that are big contributors to worsening your child's symptoms of autism, and especially there's some common gluten and dairy things, but people are feeding their children, a sugary treat or some chips that have some grains and other bad ingredients in them that are actually triggers for worsened behaviors. So if I watched this happen on an airplane one time. I was sitting just a few seats back from a couple who had a son with autism, and the boy was probably around age, I would guess maybe around 10 or 12 years old. He was a big boy, but I think he was big for his age. And he was sitting there, and I heard the mom say he has autism to the stewardess as we got on, and the boy was actually doing okay. He was, fairly severe autism. Like, I could tell he was nonverbal, and he was stimming a little bit, a little rocking, but he was kind of okay. They opened up a can of SpaghettiOs and handed it to him and gave him a piece of candy, one of those ring pops that you suck on, bright green, so food colorings, high fructose corn syrup, sugar, all of that things, plus this can of horrid food, which has like gluten and processed carbohydrates and sugars and all these things that trigger all of these bad behaviors, because it's going to inflame the gut, which then inflames the brain, all of these things. That boy went from being pretty calm in his seat to almost being out of control, and nobody could figure out why. And I thought, they even had an aide with them that they brought with them. And I thought, boy, people they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. So if you can avoid a lot of these bad foods, the behaviors will get better. And before your child goes to school, if you give your child a protein source, say you give them an egg for breakfast instead of a muffin or pancakes or cereal. The muffin, the pancakes, the cereal, all those things are processed carbohydrates. They will actually make it harder for any of us to think. And they also contribute to worsening symptoms. Well, the same thing would be the case if you're going on a plane or in a car or out the door to the grocery store. And then if you can feed your child something healthy, like an egg or even some good nuts, not peanuts, they're bad. Even, something where they have a protein source and some good fat to satiate them a little bit longer. Olive oil, coconut oil, things like that with the egg. Anything like that will help to keep the behaviors at least at a minimum. And and I know picky eating is a big deal for these kids, and they get very much addicted to the bad foods because their body and the candida and all of the issues in their body they crave them. And so it's a weaning off process, but at least if to give your child something healthy, it can help calm down those symptoms. So we would do that with my son. And then exercise is so important too. Make sure that they have a chance, whether they're at school or they are in the car or they're getting out of the car, to go to a park for 10 minutes and let them run around and get some exercise and energy out, get them back in the car. It helps calm them. I have another download if you're interested it's called for at-home sensory games that you can play and do at home that are sensory calming things, but you can also take them traveling with you. And so we can link to that in the show notes as well. I don't know if you want me to give the link now or Ken, you just want to add it later. But
you can give a link. I'll type it in for them.
I made it a hyperlink to it. That's very easy. It's naturallyrecoveringautism.com/fun. So that's easy. Okay. Yeah. But those things, between feeding the right foods, giving them some exercise, helping them stay calm. Some of the things on that sensory sheet can be very helpful. And then also, noise canceling headphones can be very helpful to a lot of kids with autism for the car ride, for any public place, for an airplane, so that they don't have the ability to filter out all of the excess noise and all of the distractions and the light and everything else. It becomes overwhelming to their sensory. Then they get the sensory overload, and then that can cause them to have severe behaviors often. So that can be really helpful too.
Yeah, it's interesting the things you just mentioned, because I was at NASA over in Port Canaveral, or at Cape Canaveral, and it was interesting because at all of the rides and any of the things that people might, other than just walking around in the museum, might experience, they would categorize them for level of noise, level of lights, level of something that might cause excitement. And I thought that was unusual. It was really nice to see, because again, it showed that they were interested in trying to make things accessible for everybody. I learned a lot about autism in a very short period of time, because I had a young friend that had autism, and I didn't realize it. And so finally his parents had to tell me that he had autism, because I thought he was playing with me because he didn't want to shake hands. And I've had lots of kids think that was a fun game to try to avoid shaking my hand, and that wasn't what he was doing. It was, just normal autistic behavior. And but he and I got to be very good friends. Yeah, you're talking about peanuts. He also had a severe peanut allergy. He'd come out. We kept bees, and he'd come out and help us and work with us sometimes. Because he and I got to be good friends. But yeah, it's amazing. And again, because you can't see it, it's really hard to know. Especially if you're just meeting somebody for the first time. We were on a cruise. I guess it was when we were on the Icon of the Seas. There was a young boy that was wearing, I should say a young man. He was wearing headphones, and I could tell by the way he walked, and he was stimming just a little bit with his hand, that he was wearing those to keep the noise level down, and and like I said, he seemed to be having a good time on the ship, and that ship was one that was full of things that would stimulate you, because that's the way Royal Caribbean does it.
Yeah, they will have signs, if there's going to be a strobe light in a concert or in a movie, they'll say, if you're prone to seizures, just know that, there will be some strobe in this, so they are trying to look into certain things like that, or I've seen people have episodes, so that they're trying to make a difference. Yeah. The higher functioning people with autism actually have a much harder time, because people can't sometimes tell right away or really see that they have autism, whereas the lower functioning kids, nonverbal, more stimming, more behavioral aspects or physical symptoms or things that people can decipher a little bit more, then people become a little bit more understanding. But the high functioning, there are so many high functioning people out there with autism, and they're struggling through to get through being outside of their homes a lot of the time. So that's why I just try to always educate people on what they can do for themselves to help calm, like I said, the food and the sensory issues and a lot of this toxic overload that they all have, and their detoxification systems just can't handle it. And so then, the brain is inflamed, but all of this is workable, and much of it is reversible. I've helped parents worldwide with my program, and they have great results with it. When one son, this mom, she did a podcast interview for me. It's my podcast number 182. And Mary tells us about her son, Kevin, who was 3 years ago, age 13. She had been working for years trying to get him better, had just spent 4 years working with a functional medicine doctor who was charging her a lot of money, something like $250 for every 30-minute appointment. She was just trying to follow everything they did, not getting results. At age 13, Kevin was still hiding under the desk at school, kicking and biting other kids in fear, like just because he couldn't tolerate the classroom. And she was constantly getting called at home, to come pick him up from school. He can't be here. He's too disruptive. He's dangerous. and she's missing work. He is missing school. She thought, how's he ever going to get educated? He can't be there. And so she found my program and thought she said I was at the end of my rope. I literally just thought, what I gotta find something. So she joined the program, and now it's been 3 years. But because after the first year she had such tremendous results, she kept going. Today, Kevin, it's 16 years old, is a leader in his a teen leader in his youth camp in the summer. He's calm, happy. She's like, he has none of those behaviors anymore. He's calm, he's happy, he's able to guide these kids. The kids love him. He has friends now, which he didn't before. I mean, just a complete transformation in a human being, seeing what the toxic load, the foods, the underlying co-infections that we work with, what the right steps and the right roadmap can do for somebody. Because so many people just don't know. They just try maybe therapies and think, well, that's all there is. Or, maybe I'll try a diet change, but I don't know too much. They just, there's so much information overload for the parents too. So that's why I give it to them in a roadmap, because I know that so many people can just live such better lives.
Yeah, it's interesting. I found out when I was 70 that I have ADHD, and pretty bad. And looking back, it explains a lot of things in my life.
Right. That you didn't even know. A lot of people are like, oh my gosh, yeah, they're getting diagnosed with autism or Asperger's as an adult, same thing, or ADHD. Think, oh, that's what's going on.
Well, and I on Instagram, you run into lots of people talking about the fact that they found out that they had autism and ADHD, but late in life, and so it's because it is hidden. And when I was growing up, they didn't have ADHD; they just had bad kids.
Right. You're labeled as a bad kid. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, troublemaker, those kinds of things.
Right.
But so like I said, it's interesting. So you said, let me go back to what we were talking about for just a second. So you said you said some tips for preparing for a trip and for traveling. Now we talked about the game and controlling diet. Is there anything else that you've learned along the way that would help parents?
Well, besides definitely food is a big one, because it can be a big trigger for bad behaviors, and some exercise and some of the the sensory pieces, and the noise canceling headphones can be great. But if you explain even to a nonverbal child, if you explain to a child ahead of time what is going to happen, we're going to get in the car, and then we're going to be driving. You're going to sit in the back seat. You can have your headphones on or whatever they're going to do. And then they don't know time. So, and after a little bit, we're going to be at grandma's house, whatever you're going to do. And then we're at grandma's. You explain it to them simply, of course, as few steps as possible, but explain to them what's going to happen. Then they can be a lot more calm, because they get so anxious about the unknown. There's, even something when they're doing homework, there's something called a time timer. You can get them on Amazon or whatever, but you can set it for them and they can look at it and know, okay, you're going to do homework for this long, 15 minutes. You learn, parents are the key to their child's success too. You know what your child is capable of. So tell parents, like, if 15 minutes is your child's maximum of the time that they can sit, then you just be aware of that. Like, is it the same in the car as it is at home, or is it different? So the parents really start to get to know what their child what's going to be helpful to them, what their limitations are. If they can only do homework for 15 minutes and sit still for that long, then at 15 minutes say, okay, we're going to get up and we're going to do something else, and then we'll come back. Just the same with travel. If you explain to them what is going to happen ahead of time, then they have some more understanding and can be more calm. Like, okay, and then I don't know if the show Atypical that was I think was on Netflix, depicted things pretty well for the boy with autism, as far as like his best friend would come up and he said, "Can I hug you?" And then the boy with autism would say, "Okay." Like, he'd get permission, and then he'd say a little bit, or you want a harder squeeze, and then the kid would go harder squeeze, because hugging can be really calming to them, like a weighted blanket on top of them when they sleep or in the car or on the plane, is very calming. It calms the central nervous system. So there are some simple things like that that you can get to know. It can also help to relax them. But you get to know your child and what is going to be most helpful. If you know that their toleration level, say in a car especially, because you can stop the car and do something for a short turn versus an airplane ride maybe. But if you can find what your child's limitations are, a parent knows them, start to work through some of these practical tips of things that you can do along the way to help them, then the road can be so much easier.
Okay. When so that brings a question to my mind: is do kids at a young age do better with like a video game or something that they can concentrate on, or is that too much stimulation and they're better off looking out the window?
Well, it depends on the child. A lot of them, if they hold an iPad, they will, or something where they're doing a game, it can help them be calm. You just don't want to always use that as your crutch because kids are having too much screen time, not enough exercise, not enough outdoor time, which is very important. And because it's an electromagnetic field device, the electromagnetic field pollution is also invading them. On my website, there's some electromagnetic field protection resources that are natural and safe. And those things, I can even give a link now, or you can look on the site, but they're really important. I have it on our phones. I have it on my home, so that wherever we go, because the phones usually go with us, we have a sense of something that will harmonize the EMF protection. Because a lot of kids will start stimming more when they have a device in their hand for too long. And the screen time from looking at the screen and the color in the eyes, like they say, nobody should be on a screen within an hour of the time we go to bed. Well, how many people are on a screen, either watching TV or a computer or their phone or something before they go to bed, right?
Yeah.
It's really common and it messes with your sleep. So it's, and then there's the electromagnetic field. So you kind of get to know your child. It can be helpful in a car ride. And if that is what you need to do, then you do it. But you just want to make sure that's not all they do, or they have they're limited to, the time, and they're getting outside and exercising.
Okay, so now that brings to mind a question. So for parents, when they get to, like, let's say they have a layover where they've got to wait between planes, is it better than to deal with going like outside and try to get outside or find a play area? And I've seen, thinking where it was, because I saw some play areas that were designed. Oh, I know, it was Brightline has some play areas for kids, especially those that might be suffering from autism, that are designed to be something they can do and keep busy, but not maybe overdo it. Because I'm trying to think about because if they've got 4 hours sit on the plane or 3 hour ride on the plane, they've been playing with the watching something or video or something. Now we need exercise and preferably a little sunlight. So what do you think about how do you deal with that?
Well, airports don't have a lot of, you mentioned something called Brightline. I don't know. Is that something that
a train that's here in a super accessible train that runs between Miami and Orlando?
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, of course, if they offer something like that, but not, a lot of airports don't really offer things like that. If you're in a layover, then you can, it depending on how long the layover is, I would, every parent again knows their child best. So again, if you have to use the screen thing for calming for a while, but if you're getting off of a plane after sitting for a long time and say you've got a couple hour layover, I would try and walk them around the airport and get them moving as much as possible, because they're going to get back into a plane and sit again and be stuck in a seat again. Of course, if you've landed where you're going, then you're getting out and you can go outside but if you're a layover is a different story. Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting for my wife. Layovers can be pretty hard because she doesn't do well sitting for a long time. She actually carries now a little blow-up air mattress with her, and we'll go in one of the lounges if we've got a long time to wait, and she'll blow it up and lay out on the floor on her back just to try to get things straightened up because the sitting she doesn't do well. Long car
Yeah.
rides, are not easy for her either. We typically will stop and get out and walk around and do something, along
Right.
the way just so that she can get out of the car.
Perfect. Like just same thing. She has learned her limitations. You know what needs to be done. You know probably about the timeline you need to do it. She carries this blow up piece around with her so she can lie down in a lounge at the airport. Things like that are exactly what a parent of a child with autism could do. The same exact kinds of things.
Yeah, just find what works well. So yeah, you mentioned something earlier. I love learning, so that's why I ask lots of questions.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have a layover in the airport and going to walk them around, is that something that you'd want to brief them on ahead of time so they knew when they got off their first airplane that they were going to go explore in the airport and they can see there'd be shops and
Yeah. I think it's always helpful with children with autism to explain what is going to happen next. Or, in a little, we're going to get off the plane now. So everybody's going to be standing up all at once, because that can be scary, right? Everybody's, and then they're all huddled in the aisle and everybody's clamoring to get off the plane. We just stand up. Or if you find it's better to we're going to just sit in our seat and wait until all these people are off the plane, then get off, usually with pre-boarding, and maybe you can get a seat that is closer to the front of the plane. That could be really helpful for sure for a parent of children with autism, because you're getting pre-boarding, so you're getting on and situated first, and then everybody else can get on in the clamor. And then when you get off, you're closer to the front of the plane to get off. And whether they allow assisted, nobody ever sits down right at the end of a plane ride.
Right.
Even if they ask people to. I just watched this happen. We just got back from a trip to Japan. We went, my husband, my kids, and I. And this one lady was almost going to miss her next flight. The plane had been delayed, and they made this announcement: can people please, if you don't have a connector flight to catch right away, and you have time, can you please stay seated? I don't think one person in the plane gets seated. This woman was looking at, I said, unbelievable, right? She's like, I can't believe nobody. Even the stewardess, when I got off, and she's like, oh yeah, people, they're bad, so you just, again, if you can get on and off more easily, but explain what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. It's going to be helpful, I find.
Okay. Yeah, because I was thinking about, because in the airport, of course, you go lots of people and sometimes a lot of noise and a lot of things that could possibly be uncomfortable. So you figure out how to make it as comfortable for them. Again, you said that you have the noise canceling headphones. That's a great idea. I saw a meme today. I thought it was really interesting that it said, I have noise canceling headphones, but I can still hear you talk. And it was an older person. I'm thinking somebody probably said something dumb about them and they heard it.
No, yeah, could be. My daughter had she has headphones on to listen to music, and they're noise canceling, and she doesn't have autism, but she just wears these headphones that are, that she likes. And she goes, yeah, there's a button I can turn off the noise canceling, but I like it on. Then I don't have to, I don't have to but there were times when we're walking and I'm like calling her name, and I'm like, and then she can't hear us. I'm finally tapping her on the shoulder. She goes, oh, and then she pull it. I'm like, this isn't really safe sometimes. But they can be really noise canceling, and for a child with autism, they can be fabulous. And you can put some calming music on, Mozart, things that they, whatever, and the kid can enjoy it. It can even be something learning. Parents will learn certain things that their children enjoy too.
Okay, right. And then Rhonda, I see your comment. You learned so much from Temple Grandin, but I need some context because that doesn't help me much.
Temple Grandin is an adult that has autism, and many, many years ago, she when she was much younger, she knew that she had autism, and she came forward kind of with it in the public arena, in a sense, because she started writing books about her life, and she helps with things like she sees in pictures, which many children with autism do. And that's really helpful for parents to know too, showing a picture of, this, steps. But so Temple Grandin has worked with cattle in showing the best way to keep cattle calm in when they're going to be rounded up and things like that. It's very interesting. But anyway, she's written several books about having autism because she has autism herself. And I believe Temple's maybe in her 60s or so now. But anyway, yeah, so she has come forward and just talked about what it's like to have autism from being a person with it. And so she's really educated the general public a lot in that way.
Okay, well, very good. Thanks for giving me the context. Something else popped into my brain and it just went away. Yeah, that's that is the squirrel rabbit thing that goes on with me. So you said that you had some things to use at home and as you travel. Oh, I know what it was now. Thinking about that brought it back to. I saw a thing the other day. It might have been on Instagram where they had a like a screen full of pictures that the children could touch to try to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was for an autistic child, nonverbal, and I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. And like emojis, a smiley face or a sad face, or what does this mean? Because they can't always read what an expression means. And so sometimes they'll use those kinds of images to teach them this is happy, this is sad, this is angry, like they're just trying to help them learn the social cues that the rest of us kind of take for granted that we just learn over time by experience. Well, somebody with autism doesn't always have that ability to learn. And so people think that they have no empathy or that they don't care. And it is very far from the truth. They're very, very sensitive emotionally, but they don't know often how to express it. So it looks like they're just blank or don't care. But I always encourage people to understand that they do understand and they do care. They just don't know how to express it. And a typical reaction that you might see from somebody else, who doesn't have autism is not what you're going to see often from a child with autism. So that's where, you can learn your communication, especially for a nonverbal child, learning, what they act like when they're upset. Sometimes they'll get so upset that they can't speak because it's so frustrating for them. They're angry and upset, so they'll start stimming more, or they'll get aggressive, or even throw things, get kind of violent, and they're just internally frustrated. So I kind of just saying, I see you're really frustrated. This is you, and then like this is where some of these sensory things, like these squeeze balls, like squeeze the ball as hard as you can, and doing things to calm them. And a lot of people, like at school, they'll try to come in and like, well, get at a kid, like, well, what can we do? Calm down. Like they've got to, like, most of the time just leave them alone, like let them have some space, exercise if possible, various things. Again, it would be depending on the child.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, listen, I have had a very nice conversation. Kind of went a little bit long, but I was learning, and I'm always, like I said, I'm a fan of learning and getting smarter as you go. It was like when Cheryl and I started, we've kind of focused on people in wheelchairs, and then you start to think about all the other kinds of disabilities and talking to the cruise lines and talking about all the different things that they do, and so it just kind of opened our eyes and our ears to think about, okay, all of these individuals have different challenges, even with them. You think about mobility. Well, mobility runs from, like, my wife, who is at home fairly mobile. She uses a walker, or she needs something for balance, but at home she's pretty like that without a problem. If we go into town, like if we go to the grocery store, she gets a cart and leans on that to provide her the stability she needs. But when we go on a cruise and we're going to be walking a long ways, we take a scooter. And all of those meet the need in that situation, but it's not the same all the time. Whereas, somebody that's a paraplegic, for example, is going to be in a wheelchair all the time. But it's starting to think about, okay, there's this whole range of, like I said, just with mobility plus vision issues or hearing issues, or let's say spectrum issues. Just all of these are different. People with food allergies. Some people have severe food allergies. Some people have fairly mild things. Mostly, it may not even be really an allergy. It's just a strong dislike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Environmental allergies. They can't smell certain smells. They can, there are a lot of sensitivities these days for sure. You see service dogs with people all over the place now. Nobody ever asks them what it's for, but you figure a lot of it's to calm, because a lot of people have severe anxiety issues. There's a lot, and they're not maybe on the spectrum, but they've got other issues, or maybe they are on the spectrum. Nobody's asking them, but at least it gives you a sign that, okay, something they have needs, or but otherwise, yeah, especially if you're high functioning, or you're able to kind of maintain in public, people don't know how much might be going on inside of a lot of people with their discomforts in public arenas. Yeah.
I like service dogs, and I'm very good about always asking if I can say hi to their service dog before I do it. But if they say yes, then me and the dog have a conversation for a little while. Anyway, okay, we'll say goodbye to the audience. We got one more comment here. Oh, Rhonda said this episode was interesting and informative. Thank you much, Rhonda. Every once in a while we manage something that's worthwhile.
Yeah, it's great because we're bringing public awareness to people too. I mean, this is really wonderful in that way, because a lot of people don't know or even think about some of the things that we just discussed in this. So it's really helpful. I would assume the general public, could learn for sure from this.
Yeah, and that's the thing is for everybody that's listening, that no matter what challenges you face, it's nice to learn about other people's challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Because first of all, it builds empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Second, it keeps you from doing something silly. And like I said, I've been guilty of that. So anyway, we'll say goodnight to the audience. Thanks everybody for being here.
Thank you so much.
So Aaliyah just popped up and said she has autism. Oh, thank you for sharing. It's nice for you to join the show. We appreciate it.
And she can go and watch the replay, right, Ken, if she missed any of it?
Yeah, she can go back and watch the replay, and she can. I'll share your naturallyrecoveringautism.com website, and I'll put it in the comments so everybody can see it. Without watching the video, so you can find it. But thanks for joining us.
Great, thank you. I'm happy to have been here. Thank you so much for what you're doing too.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we'll say goodbye to everybody, and we will see you same time next week. I think we're going to be talking about Destin, Florida, in that area. We're going to go over and do some touring, see what we can find that's accessible and fun to do there. Yeah.